So if the developers release code that changes the rules of the crypto, like let's say you want to increase the coin limit from 21 million coins in existence to 100 or whatever it is, you release that code, and the miners and the node operators, the wallet developers, the exchanges, the payment processors, they can essentially, it's like a vote. They vote based on which version of the software they choose to run. Now let's say someone releases that, because anyone can change it, and half of the people run this and the other half of the people run a different version. Well, then there's a split. And that's where the term fork comes from.
Right.
So,
You had a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So when that split is actually happening, and let's say you have adopters that are adopting the new code, and then you have people that aren't adopting the new code. So you now have two sets of, so you have the old set and the new set. Now, I just want to make sure I get this straight. Do you carry on with the new adopters? Do they carry on with the new code, with the
Yes.
new coin? What happens to the people that aren't adopting the new?
well, there's lots of things that can happen. It can get real messy depending on how well it's planned out.
Okay.
It has to be planned out in advance, and if you have, and it basically comes down to the exchanges, the payment processors, the wallet developers, the miners, and the node operators. Now, in the case of in the case of Ethereum, for example, and Bitcoin Cash, I'll just stick with Bitcoin Cash because that's a lot
Well,
simpler.
everybody knows.
Okay, good. All right. So for who here does not know about Bitcoin Cash? Just curious. No. Okay, good. Yeah, that one was just a simple capacity increase. For a while, we just figured, we don't need the core developers to release their version of the software. We could just create our own and just increase the limit. And so that's what we did. As a node operator myself, I installed the newer version on all my nodes because I was signaling to the miners, hey, we have support. You need support. You need a certain number of nodes so that the miners can sort of check the weather and see which direction it's going. But in general, you want as much support as you can, not just miners and nodes. You have to have exchanges. You have to have wallet developers. You have to have it all on board. So that didn't work. The miners, for whatever reason, did not want a split to happen. They did not want to increase capacity. And so at that point, on August 1st, approximately 12 hours before SegWit was scheduled to be activated. Who here has heard of SegWit? Okay, good. SegWit's just a feature. It was supposed to be meant for another capacity increase, but it really didn't solve the problem. So, again, part of the network didn't agree with it.
What was the problem? So explain what the problem was.
All right, SegWit is a big, complex fix that does not address the original issue.
So they wanted it to be standardized all the way through the system.
Yes, so the very simple fix is changing one digit. The block sizes are limited to 1 megabyte in size, which can hold about 2,000-3,000 transactions per 10 minutes, which comes down to 2 to 3 transactions per second. That's not going to cut it if you're talking about a global currency. Obviously, that number was meant to increase. You don't want to go crazy. You don't want to go 1 gigabyte, but slowly over time increase as user adoption happens.
Why don't you want to go faster?
All right, so the other side of the argument, to play devil's advocate, is if you have blocks that are too large, then the blockchain will get bloated. It's already at about 156 gigabytes, and it will be hard on node operators and such, and so the average person running a node from home will no longer want to run one. But to counter that point, but you need adoption, and as more businesses adopt the currency, businesses and exchanges, they have to run their own nodes. They will pay the expense, and it's really not that much. And if the block size, if the size of the blockchain gets too large, you can do all sorts of things like pruning, which gets rid of the unneeded digital signatures and make it smaller. It basically just takes a hash of the block, like checkpoints, so it's a very thin, lightweight node. You're still able to verify, but exchanges and payment processors that are running high risk, they're going to run full nodes because they're already running big servers. What's a terabyte? what's it, a couple terabytes.
Right.
Technology's only gonna get better over time, so, just like the
Now,
internet.
may need it at a later date. They will
Exactly.
need that.
They will need it at a later
Exactly.
date, so they wanna have them, they wanna be covered.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's,
So
That-
segue.
all right, SegWit, instead of changing the digit from 1 to 2 to increase the megabytes in size, they introduced like 6,000 lines of code and introduced a completely new transaction format and introduced God knows what other types of bugs or hacks that can be pulled off. And the dangerous part about SegWit is once it's introduced and activated and one person does one SegWit transaction, it cannot be reversed unless you rewind the whole blockchain, which is way, way more dangerous. The simpler option is obviously much better, and that's what me and anyone else on the Bitcoin Cash side went with. So 12 hours before the SegWit activation was scheduled to happen, we did our contingency plan, and we figured, we're just gonna split, we're gonna call ours Bitcoin Cash. We're not gonna do SegWit, we're just gonna increase the block size and keep the original code that Bitcoin has had for 8 years and had great success on. It's stable, it's rock solid, it's battle tested, it's the same code, same blockchain, and we split. And that's what we did. And that's why Bitcoin Cash exists, because the transaction fees were getting way too high. I think in December, the transaction fees on Bitcoin were up to like $5, $10, $15. It was crazy. It used to be less than a penny for most of its existence.
What time frame was all this? When you say August, like you're talking about this past August
For this past August 1st, so,
of 17?
yeah. And
So
now
when
we have
you say we, were you with a company or is this a group of developers, friends?
me and a bunch of vigilantes online running nodes, getting real pissed off nerds. That's what we were doing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds-
'Cause we-
So, his question was like, when it splits, what happens? Does it continue on, or?
In this case, both of them continued on. Now, what's supposed to happen, if you read the Satoshi white paper on how forks are handled, let's say
I
I'm a
have
miner.
knowledge about it.
Let
If anyone else has read the white paper.
you should. Yeah,
Good
very good.
stuff.
Yeah,
Is it,
You have to.
as a non-developer, would I be able to decipher a lot of what's going on there? Or?
yeah. You're gonna have to read it like at least 10 times. It's
Yeah, more than that.
It's
I read it like at
Note
least
to self.
15.
it's 8 pages. It's only 8 pages.
Oh, okay.
But you're really gonna have to.
It's thick, detailed.
Yeah.
Cool.
Um,
You said it's available online.
So, in order to prevent a rogue fork from happening, let's say I'm a miner and I say, you know what, my node that does mining, I'm going to run rules that say instead of 21 million Bitcoin, there will be 100 million. All right? I'm the only one running on the network, or maybe me and only like 5 to 10% of the miners run it. So I'm putting in capital in the form of electricity costs and hardware costs. And miners, they have to make a return on investment because they generate millions of dollars worth of electricity a month and they have to pay the bills. So if I'm mining on top of an invalid chain with invalid rules,
You're
and
gonna get an invalid product on your return.
and my version of the Bitcoin, I cannot cash at the exchange, so I lose all that money. So it uses game theory to keep everyone honest. It's more profitable to play by the rules than against it.
Right, the
Great
only
explanation.
issue